Right, I'm not getting too far with this board. I still need to put a bit of work in. I think it's sitting with, if you've seen the video so far, you'll know it's flashing on. There's definitely a short or some problems on the chips running at the same place. So I thought just take a quick look at the condition of the terminal because I haven't really opened it. So all I've done so far, I thought I'd film it, was to take the 6 screws up the side using the assembly manual in reverse. Actually, the last thing to do on the assembly manual is to put the monitor cover on with the 4 screws and obviously to fit the keyboard cover. So logically that must be the first thing to do to come it back off. So hopefully the 4 screws coming out, I should be able to lift this cover off somehow. I'm hoping the keyboard cover, the keyboard looks like it might have screws underneath as well. Well, no, it does come off without being able to lift the keyboard off, but looks like it just, there you go. Oh. Okay, so that's the monitor cover. It's only a bit of that can be cleaned up hopefully, so we keep that carefully aside. In fact, we'll move it out of the way completely before we damage something. I'll take his weight. So probably easiest with the camera freehand really, I suppose. Inside looks fairly grubby, but it's not too bad maybe. Plenty of dirt in on the cabling. It's obviously been stored in less than ideal conditions, but chances are when it has been discharged for a very long time, but you don't know, very careful with high voltages. Looking at where it is. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to get the keyboard up. And I think that is definitely screwed on at the front leading edge as well. So we'll have to tip it over to do that. So we'll take the camera back and take the bottom screws out of the keyboard to get that off. Now, there were actually two small screws underneath. Worryingly, the back of this says 110 volts, so we're going to have to be very careful. We check that. Maybe it's just the wrong label on the back panel. But if it was an American edition, it would be 110 volts. That should fall back. Ooh, yes, definitely grubby keyboard there. But should clean up, I would have thought. Yeah, and just dust, I think, really. So not too bad. Definitely had some damp. There's a bit of rust on the metalwork, yeah. Connectors look fairly clean and tidy though. So to take a look at the logic board underneath, I believe, which is upside down. Quite a lot in this to go wrong. So wide and fairly big capacitors in the back as well. I had wondered how much checking to do before we power it from a dim bulb tester. But we could either strip it down completely and check everything, or just take a look and see if it powers up with a dim bulb. I can't see any obvious signs of ever having a heat damage inside. It's nothing obviously blown or any capacitors bulging or leaking anywhere. Do need to make sure we've got a 240 volt feed though, don't we? I can't see anything obvious in there that would be of concern electrically. Doesn't look like there's any fires or heat. Couple of electrolytics on that power supply board. Wonder whether to just stick the cover back over and give it a little try on the dim bulb tester, because the fuse was good in it. It's currently off. I did test the fuse and that's okay, it hasn't been damaged. It's a H9 6830. The sticker's actually on the frame chassis rather than on the back. It's not glowing brightly, that bulb, but it is glowing, so obviously some energy is taken. It's not dead short. Doesn't look like there's anything happening. Oh, we had definitely had the screen was alive then, so that's a promising start. So the monitor is obviously actually operational. So just a short run. So that looks possible. It's good that the CRT might be operational, but now we've got to be very careful because we've got the capacitors will be charged, and we'll have a CRT charged up as well. So we'll probably get the cover back on it. But I didn't really expect it to just power up and start, but you never know. So probably going to be a logic board problem. So we'll have to see. We should end up with 5 volts across the logic chips, which would be a quick test. Usually ground on there and 5 volts on the top. Yeah, 4.3 volts. So being pulled down, but not completely flat, but probably not enough to get the 5 volt rail running. But at least it's not too high. Okay, it's a start. Probably do the same if we're very careful on the I/O board as well. Let's check the 5 volts getting everywhere. Yep, 4.3 volts. Okay, that's a start. A little bit of knowledge. Well, a little bit of progress on the H8, I think. I've been following the instructions in the only manual I haven't got, which is the operation manual for diagnosing it not working. Because as you've probably seen, you just get these two lights solid and a flickering on these. The interrupts were all I suspected, and I've swapped the monostable, which because the interrupts weren't happening, that seems to have restored all that functionality. But then I was just getting basically very corrupt signals on the some of the address and some of the data lines, which tend, my personal experience is 7.S240 buffers. If there's been a collision, they just become weak with age. So I had a stack here. So I replaced all the buffers on the CPU card and on the 4K RAM card, which obviously will hopefully help. I also swapped them. There's one on the front panel as well. There's no hardship. I got a set of known 10 that are good, so swap them out. Obviously I've then when I turned it on, I just got a continuous beeping with the lights up, so we're making progress, but still no following the flow chart in here. If you ignore the fact is light on or off when you've got a flickering light, what you do is if you take assuming it's off and the on light as alternate routes through the flow chart, it keeps coming back to IC107, but eventually it does pin it down to say there's a wiring error. So I extended the short bus connector back so we could spread the cards out to do some testing. I checked thoroughly the connectors and they're fine. There's no problem with those at all. So there was just no IOW signal on the coming from the CPU card directly on the pin. So obviously something wrong on the CPU card or some problem related to it. I was pretty much scratching my head for a while, and then I'd seen perhaps a comment on the Google group that trying a different RAM card. So I couldn't find any documentation of the RAM cards, but I remembered the Shadowtron blog, so thank you very much. Had done a bit of a video on the card. I can't find any written documentation on websites, but I sort of worked out how the switch is. I thought it was probably changing the address and I had to move this jumper over from, which is 020, to just leave it at 040, so that the 16K card is actually lower down in memory and is the first memory it sees. Thought, I got nothing to lose. It's a bigger memory, bigger card, but the first couple of RAM chips should be all right. And as Shadowtron did, I could have cycled around the groups of memory until I got a working set in the bank that is the first bank. So I quickly checked his video. Yeah, sure enough, I am right. It's that one over. He's got to put it in there. So I crammed that card in, and wow, we've actually got a display on the screen. It's not beeping continuously. And now we're in a position where I don't know what to do because I haven't actually ever had a working H8. So It may not be working yet, but it's an interesting address in the split octal format. For those who don't know, you've basically got the first digit isn't full, so it's the 16-bit address is split into the lower and upper bytes, so you're not seeing the address written out as you would in Octal. So I'm going to start exploring the manual for commissioning the computer now. I'll probably leave all the extended cabling and the cards spread out so we can gather them if we need to, but chances are as well all those swapped. I've cleaned all the legs off on the buffers. Most of them test okay in the quick tester, but then again, so the usually failed ones that have just got drive strength problems. But we'll give them another little test, and I'll restore some of the originals, certainly the ceramics, back to the CPU card one at a time. We'll just put them back in, proving that they can cope, and restore the machine to as many original chips as we can, obviously, leaving the others spare for other jobs. But so it's looking promising, so I'm going to have a little bit of an explore of what to do next. So, test routines, page 1, power switch on, yes, that's what we've got. So basically if we press the mem button, we should light all the decimal points. They do indeed. So now we should be able to type in a number, so let's try 04010. Sure enough, that's what I end up with. And then we got XXX, which is random for that address. So, okay. So if we press Alter now, which allows us to alter that address, 0400100, so we're going to be able to change the value of 124 that's in that address. So we press the Alter button, which gives us the scanning left to right. So now we should be able to put in a short beat between each key. Oh no, you don't get a short beep, so definitely one little thing to note there, we're not getting a short beep, but we are going to beep on the end. Okay, so now we've gone to the next address, 040101, but a minus should go to the previous address and show me the value I put in, which was 076 correctly. Plus should take me to the next address, which it does. So I should now be able to put in a value in this address, so if I go, maybe there's a little clicking noise, so and then minus should be able to go back and check that it took that value, which it did. So I can do plus to go back forward the memory address, and I can put another one in here now, which is 062. Okay, which is doing it. So we're getting through it fairly quickly, and then we should be able to get to a short beep eventually to okay. So now in address 103 should be 010. And then at 104 they're going to want 040. Okay, and now we're at address 105, and we're basically going to type in all of this program in code. Wow, I haven't been speaking much, but this is actually quite a quick way of entering, because the way it does just moves on to the next auto increment address, so quite a well thought out system compared to perhaps the MK14 or the Scrumpy's binary switches. Okay, so we've got all the way to 234. So now we're on to page 8, and we are going to press the Alter button again, which should stop those things doing. And now we're going to press the dot, which is the register, so we get the PC register up. And we're going to alter the PC register, short beep, but we haven't got the scan in for some reason. Why is that? Okay, they are now. Maybe didn't get it. So 040100. So this is what we're going to put into the program counter register. And then we're going to finish alternate, so we're not scanning anymore. And finally we're going to do a go, hopefully. Which will, I think, start the program running maybe at that address. And there we are. Great, the original Your H8 is up and running. And if we press the 0 and the mem hash together, it should do the reset and stop it going back to the program counter, which is the interrupt. So there we go. it's running, and the setup routine and the initial introduction routine runs fine. So what we have to do now is punch the memory test routine in, and give the memory, the 16k RAM, a thorough test, and maybe we can fix the 4k RAM and get it back up to 20k. In fact, if in fixing the 4k we probably up it to 8k, and that will allow us to have 24k of memory as well. So and we obviously got to start restoring some of the 240 chips just to see what the fault was. Of course, you will have seen a couple of quick photos at the start, maybe. If not, I'll show them now. On the CPU card, there were quite a few dead and blown tantalums. We'd obviously had an overpower event. I swapped all those, and the regulators were fine, which was good, and the rails were really good. Nice stable power. So obviously I brought the capacitor up slowly with, took it out of circuit and just charged it with my desk power supply. Just gently to get the thing going. I didn't use the dim bulb power on for it. I should have done really, but I powered on with all the cards out completely and this unplugged just to test the rails were okay, and left it for a good couple of hours with the rails running just to make sure they were fine. I notice there's a bent pin there as well on the bus, so we'll have to straighten that. It does, all the cards need a good clean now. They've had an initial just get rid of the worst, but they're pretty grubby. So we'll keep going, and then we'll get the serial card hopefully next going, which will allow us to save and load from cassette. And then maybe we'll see if we can get some more things running. First steps though is to get this memory entry test routine in and see how much of the static RAM 16k is working. Okay, so this is now, we're going to move on to doing the memory test routine, which can exercise 4 or 8k. You can't do it all because obviously the small section from 40000 to 40100, they're reserved for the monitor program, and the last 128 bytes are reserved for the stack. So we can only check the section in the middle, but let's check the first portion of 8k of it, and then we'll look at modifying it to just the second 8k, because they don't give the numbers for a 16k card, only for a 4k or 8k, assuming you had this basic memory card, I think. So we'll get away and punch it in, which we start with by doing a mem hash, which goes back into memory entry, and then we need to set the address. So 040 100 again, or 0, which ends up with a 103 displayed, and then we put 021 in, the 15 address. So now we're back to accelerate up and do the rest of the numbers. Okay, so we finished that now, so this should stop the scanning, which it does, and then we should be able to do the mem button, which puts all the lights up. So we're now entering a memory address, so we go back to 040 100, back to where we were, and then the memory address increments. Let me see, 040 101 160, that's correct, and then we are going to hold down the plus key. So they want us to, this is now to check all the contents of memory, read the value as they were on the other values we were setting at address onwards. So 2, 3, 4, now I set 5 to 77 for an 8k test. So 6600 315 147 040. I'll probably have sped this up by the time so no need to speak. Okay, now we're going to do the dot to set the register, and we are going to set the PC register to a value, PC, but it's already the PC anyway, so we're going to alter it, and we're going to make it 040100, which will be this PC register value. Finish altering it. Going to hit register button at the dot, which changes the register again, and I think they're going to make us show the BC register. Yes, they are, which is labelled on the 3 key BC, which is going to be the end result of it. and that should mean if we hit go, we should start testing memory. There we go, and it's clicking up, testing through the memory, looking at each of the possible addresses, seeing whether there's a memory error. The mon light is out because we're actually running the processor, not the monitor, I believe. Okay, so it runs all the way around and loops and off it goes. So what we're going to do now is we're going to interrupt it by pressing the Alt and the 0 keys together, which goes back into the monitor. So, looks like that test is successful. All we need to do now is modify memory test to test the upper half of the 16K, which we will do, but we need to avoid the very top of RAM because the stack is going to be there. It probably didn't test the very last little bit of 8 because of the first 8K, assuming the stack was there. It probably didn't test the last 128 bytes, but we're going to be pretty unlucky if they're the faulty ones, because they're within the same chip, but we do need to test the second 8K. So we'll go off camera and we'll do that, and we'll come back, and looks like we've got a working H8, reasonably reliable. Excellent. We're going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid. As you can imagine, what's going to happen when I test the upper 8K, it's not going to work. So we'll have to wait until part 3 to see what the actual faults are on that memory, and how we find them. And we'll look at the other 4K memory card, which has some issues with it as well, and how we go about testing it and repairing that, and perhaps how hideously expensive the two totally different types of memory chips are that are on each card. They are of course not the same chip on each card. Hopefully we'll be able to get to looking at the floppy disk drive unit, the H17, and an initial look at what we can do to get over the fact it's a single drive and it uses hard sectored floppy disks. Luckily enough, one of the members of the user group, Glenn, has very kindly sent from the US some hard sectored disks for me, and I can't say thanks enough for it, to allow us to progress on that side of the video series as well. So until next time, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're enjoying the journey to restoring this wonderful set of machines. And we'll pick up again soon. Thanks. Bye.